That's the sound of a big deal. At Wayfair, that sound happens a lot. Dream sofa for half the price? Big deal. New dining table you've been eyeing for months? Big deal. Finally picking up those last few pieces and finishing that bedroom? Now that's a really big deal. Whatever your home needs, Wayfair has the selection, the savings, and over millions of 5-star reviews to back it up. Shop Wayfair.com today before someone else snags your big deal.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
He's Derek.
I can hear the bells. Shame! Shame!
She's Romaine.
This is what happens with DNR 2.0. You get a much more interactive Romaine. Putting out the zinger. Zing, zing, zing!
This is Derek and Romaine.
2.0, bitches!
Derek here, along with Romaine, and joining us now, it is composer, lyricist, accompanist, and now author.
Best-selling author.
Best-selling, that's right, New York Times bestseller, Marc Shaiman. He is the author of Never Mind the Happy, Showbiz Stories from a Sore Winner, available now everywhere fine and dirty books are sold, and he is in the midst of a book tour, so you might actually physically see him in a city near you, because you have been traveling all over the place, have you not?
Yes. And it's only just begun. We've only just begun. Yes, New York, Philly, then L.A. In New York, I had Nathan Lane was the moderator, and we had the greatest time. And then just now in L.A., talk about a fantasy, Bette Midler moderating, interviewing me at the Academy Museum.
Amazing.
So Bette and I have never actually received the Academy Award, many nominations. So the two losers up there on the Academy Museum stage, but that was phenomenal for me and for the audience. You know, it was tremendous. But now I'm with Derek and Romaine.
Now I have to ask you, Mark, because I in preparation for this, and I did a lot of preparation for this, even though I felt I was very familiar with your life and everything. I did want to, because your book digs very deeply into your whole life. I was like, I also need to dig deeply into Marc Shaiman's life. And I will tell you one takeaway that I have gotten from your book, but also from recent interviews, is I think Bette Midler is worrying about you. Does Bette Midler worry about you a lot?
She asked me the other night if I'm happy. Yeah, no, I mean, she gets me. We're very. It's one of the reasons why our relationship and why I loved her from the get-go. I could just sense we're kind of built the same way. So she understands me. She's the same way. She's, can get depressed about everything and, just always waiting for the other shoe to drop. She's the same personality as me. So she gets me. So, yeah, we worry about each other, sure.
Okay, good. All right.
We're doing fine.
That's good to know. That's good to know.
You're doing a lot of running around and doing a lot of press and everything. So, if Bette tells you to take a nap, I think you should take a nap. Okay. So, hilariously, Bette Midler, like with many of your connections in life, is also how we first got in contact with you, because on the show, I was telling an extremely dusty story about going to the movies in Los Angeles and thinking that I saw Bette Midler like outside the theater, and I wasn't sure until you walked up. And then I was like, oh, that's Marc Shaiman. That's definitely Bette Midler. And you were actually listening at the time to the show when I told that story. How weird was that for you, driving around and then all of a sudden you're being talked about?
Strange, yeah. I don't get talked about much on the air or at all. That's why I wrote the book. So, thank you for the fact that you even recognize me proves you're very, very gay.
Very. He might be the most gay.
But I actually, in reading your book, because I read the whole thing.
Of course you did.
There'll be a quiz.
Would you like to quiz me? All right. So you described Bruce Vilanch in your book as ubiquitous, and yet he was in your book a lot less than I thought he was going to be. So with Bruce, because we had him on the show last
We
year.
love him.
And I promised to ask him questions that he was not getting on the rest of his book tour. And so my perception this whole time has been that you and Bruce were sort of on all the same jobs a lot over the years. But was it a thing where is my perception right or wrong?
Yes. That's the thing with the book. As I write in the acknowledgments, I don't know who's going to be more upset, the people in it or the people not in it. Just the other night at the Academy, my friend Linda Hart, who was I met when she was one of Bette Midler's Harlots, and she's been in many musicals of mine. Living Dolls, a musical that never took off, and then she was original cast of Hairspray and Catch Me If You Can. I've known her since 1979, and it's typical of her personality. She leaned down at the book signing and said, "I don't think I'm in your book. I've known you for 40 years. I've done 5 shows here." It just works. It's just, you sit down, you write these stories. I mean, part of the point of the book is the kind of, I'm as amazed as anyone else that look at all this stuff that I did, that I got to do. And it just works out sometimes that, I don't, I've done a million things with Billy Crystal, and there's a few things, of course, in there, big things, but there's so many other things. Anyway, yes. I mean, Bruce and I were on the road with Bette and a million things, 300,000 Oscar, hosting Billy Crystal, or even with other people. I mean, I've worked with Bruce Valanche my whole life. He was in Hairspray. Right. But the Hairspray story I was telling was the creation of Hairspray and right up until Broadway. And the Oscar story was about Billy and, how it started at my house. Anyway, it just works out that way.
How did you, you obviously have a gazillion stories, right? And so many of them are fascinating and the average person would love to hear them. How do you pick? Like, how do you sit down and be like, my life, I've got, like you said, you got to do all these amazing things. How do you decide what are the stories worth telling and what gets scrapped?
I kind of sat down and with like Wikipedia and IMDb. I also found newspapers.com, which was amazing. Is it newspaper or newspapers.com? I can't remember. Yeah. But like I put in New Jersey, Marc Shaiman, 1972 through 1976. And all these articles that were written about me because I was a wunderkind playing for community theater. So like the Plainfield, New Jersey Courier News and stuff, like I found all these articles, and then my cabaret days from the early 80s, working with so many people, Zora Rasmussen, Linda Hart, Debbie Shapiro before she became Debbie Gravitt, Christine Ebersol. They all got reviewed in their cabaret acts, and I was able to spend a few weeks of total narcissism just chronologically piecing together this jigsaw puzzle of my life, and then the movies, and then one by one, then I just looked at it all and thought, oh yeah, I got a story about that one or this one. And then a lot of it is the stories I've been telling for decades now, that have become sort of my go-to stories, like the Barbra Streisand story and stuff. It was just finally time to figure out how to write it down. So that was, especially with the Barbra Streisand one, how to write it so that, because the enjoyable part of telling that story is imitating Marilyn Bergman. Hello, Mark. Marilyn Bergman. Word for word, what did you say to Marty Ehrlichman about the bill for the music? So anyway, and which is why you should get the audiobook as well as the book. I'm about to put out a video I've made of me singing new lyrics to It Had to Be You, saying, you got to buy two. The pictures, nowadays the pictures are in the book, right? And the audio is on the audio, and on the audio I have a lot of people singing in the book.
Awesome.
The lyrics. So I wrote all these lyrics in the book, I think because I was endlessly trying to get across that I co-write lyrics. I write lyrics and or with Scott co-write, and that always seems to get forgotten or not even acknowledged, or I don't know, just whatever, but that's my big pet peeve. I'm going to have it written on my tombstone. He also wrote lyrics. So blah, 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 blah. So anyway, on the audiobook, I realized, oh my God, I have all these lyrics. I'm not going to recite them. So I called in 3,000 favors and the audiobook is stock full of great singers.
Okay, now I got to get the audiobook because that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
How did you like reading in an audiobook, though? Because I find it very daunting, the idea of it.
Yeah. It was a mountain to climb. Once again, it was like God's retribution for 66 years of narcissism. It was like, first I had to write a book about myself. Then I had to read a book about myself.
Right.
But as you can tell, I like to talk. I like to talk about myself. I talk too fast, as you can hear. So for the book, after 3 chapters, me and the other people involved with the book, they all said, slow down. And we had to put a big sign in my studio saying, slow the fuck down. And then, because I'm not used to speaking all the time, my tongue will get in the way of myself. So I would get through a paragraph and then stumble on a word. And have you noticed, like, once you stumble on a word, you just keep stumbling on the same word. And then it just, like, infects everything. So I was going back and doing retakes and going back. And then I'd have to go home and listen to what I had recorded me talking about myself from the book that I wrote about myself. And I'd have to edit me talking about myself from the book that I wrote about myself. And oh my God.
I understand. I feel your pain. I can't read copy for shit. Ask Derek. Every time we have to record a commercial or a promo, he can do it lickety split, no problem. Me, I'm stumbling over that same word 12 times. It drives me insane.
I know. And then the words start sounding weird, like garage. Is that a word? Garage. Yeah, it's so bizarre. But by the way, speaking of voices, it's so nice to hear both of your voices.
Well, thanks.
I have such great memories of driving in my car and listening to what was it? Gay radio? What was the name of it?
OutQ, yeah. That was the channel we were on.
It was so good. It was so hideous when they took it off. But it's nice to hear your voices.
Well, thank you. It's good to have you back, and we're going to make sure you can listen to us anytime you want.
Now I know. Thank you.
So here I have a long list of things I was surprised by in your book. Okay. So first of all,
I'm going to let Derek talk now.
First of all, you were kind of, I mean, I don't know how to diplomatically say this. You must have driven your parents crazy. Like in the book, you started a fire. You basically stopped living at home. You moved to New York City at 16, really 15, because you just sort of like were never there. Dropped out of high school, got a GED. And so did your parents just realize with you, Mark is just on his own track and we just kind of have to let him go and see where it goes? Or were they concerned? Like because in reading the book, I was thinking if I were his parents, I would lock him in a closet. Like, what is happening here?
I know. And when I see my friends with their kids, I look at a 16-year-old and I'm like, I did what? Yeah, no, my parents, very much like how you just described it. They saw that I was on my own track, and I had been going out every night to do community theater since I guess I was like 13. So 13, 14, 15. Every night I was out musical directing a community theater. So they already saw that I was dedicated. They saw that I had the talent to be doing what I was doing. My talent was very clear, like from very young, and I hope no one minds me saying my talent, but at this point, come on.
You're pretty talented. I think you could say that.
It's a gift. It's not like I did it myself. It came from someone else. So, yeah. And, they're your very basic suburban Jewish parents. Also, I guess because I was the fourth. I was the baby. I was the fourth kid. So I think maybe by the fourth kid, its parents must be a little like, whatever. But they also saw there was no fighting it. Yeah, I started a little fire in the backyard, but what kid hasn't? And
I mean, I burned my parents' house down, so I understand.
Oh, boy, did you really?
I did. I mean, it was their fault, but it was kind of also my fault.
Oh,
I just did what they asked me to do, and what they asked me to do resulted in the house burning down.
Like full-on house burning?
Oh, yeah, like the house, and it was a brand new house. Like we had just built it and moved in it. I think we lived there maybe a month. Yeah.
Oh, my.
Mm-hmm.
Oh dear.
It was a fireplace that malfunctioned because it got too hot. But my dad told me to get it hot because we were all going to bed, and he wanted it to burn all night long. But it got too hot, and then it burned the house down.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I want to know, like, was there insurance?
Oh yeah. No, we got a whole new house. We had to rebuild the whole house.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was wild.
Well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have something in common. Fire starters.
Yes. All right. And I'm not the first one to take the GED and get a diploma. I took it when I was 15. How they let me take it when I was 15 seems incredible. Did I have to give like a social security number? Was I allowed to take it when I was 15? But I did. So I knew that I had passed it even before I turned 16. So I basically stopped going to school the tail end of my 10th grade. And then in October of 11th grade, that was my last day in high school ever when I turned 16. And yeah, those teachers and people, they did call my mother and said, "What are you doing?" And my mother says that she would say to them, "What am I going to do? Chain them to the piano?" And I had already gotten a phone call I went to this summer course at Carnegie Mellon University for performing. So, and there was a very intense Israeli acting teacher named Rina Yerushalami. And all the kids didn't like her because she was very intense. And I loved her. She was fabulous. She was like Anna Magnani with an Israeli accent. She was a diva. She was fantastic. And so she called me out of the blue a few months later and said, "I'm doing an evening of Beckett, and I want the sound effects to have a musicality. And you're in New Jersey, right? You can come into New York." And it was at La Mama Experimental Theater, which is the birthplace of off-Broadway theater, experimental off-Broadway theater. So my parents saw me already now taking a bus, going to New York to do that. And that was even before I truly moved to New York. So anyway, I was insane, but it all worked out. My life was like a fairy tale.
Well, and you really did in a lot of ways live Romaine's dream, because you're 16, you're in New York City, you're pursuing your musical dream, and you're playing piano at Marie's Crisis. And, and then obviously a few years later, probably like 10 years later, you're still in the downtown art scene in the city. You're, in the orbit of people like Keith Haring, who is Romaine's favorite artist.
Favorite.
Yes.
And
we all hung out at this place called Club 57.
Mm-hmm.
It was the basement of Polish Church on St. Mark's. Scott Whitman insists that when, anyone who put on an evening there would have to clean up and then clean up afterwards. And he insists that one day he said, "Would someone tell Keith Haring to get all these drawings out of here? I'm throwing them all out." We would have been so rich.
Yeah.
I blame Scott Whitman. He threw out Keith Haring drawings.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah, but true.
But I mean,
well, as true as, Scott often says, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. But I'll always wonder.
That's something my mother says about me all the time. But you know what? All I do is tell stories. So you kind of have to let the story lead. But it was a real, for a long time there in New York City, it was a real hand-to-mouth experience for you and Scott. Like, how are we gonna pay the rent? Doing these downtown shows and everything. So you started very young and you had success very early, like, age-wise. But you were kicking around for a long time. Did you ever doubt that your dreams would come true in the way that you thought they eventually did?
I can get very depressed still, when things don't work out. Yeah. And of course, in those younger days, oh God, what am I talking about? Just last week. But, there were those days where people, where I kept hearing over and over again, "Don't give up, Mark. You're so talented. Things are going to happen. Don't let this one disappointment stop you." And then I didn't. I would cry. I'm a big crier. And I would just but I just wasn't. It just never dawned on me to really give up. There was really only one moment when I actually had to call a friend and say, "We can't pay rent. Do you have a job you could get me?" It was another guy named Glenn Rovin, who I in the movie Broadcast News with. He was a musical director, the same age as me. Had our lives and our careers were very parallel. And he's the one who said, "Well, I'm about to work with Raquel Welch on a nightclub act in Atlantic City. You want to be the vocal arranger?" So that was the job I took when I had absolutely no money, which was still,
amazing.
It was Raquel Welch. Do you know I did a podcast a few weeks ago and the guy did not know who Raquel Welch was? I literally fell on the floor. And he was a gay man of, he wasn't a spring chicken. I'd say he was in his late 20s, maybe early 30s. I don't know exactly. Very nice guy. Had a great time in the podcast. Had no idea who Raquel Welch is. Didn't even ring a bell.
But he also, he didn't, as we did, grow up with the $1 Million Movie. So
yeah, exactly.
Like a generation of people who knew all of these stars from previous generations because you would come home from school and they were on TV. And
yes.
It informed the careers of everyone in entertainment at the end of the 20th century, that $1 Million Movie, because it was what we all saw. And it was like, this is what I want to do. Like, it was on the TV. Like, they're making this magic and I want to be part of it.
I don't know where your listeners are. They all over the country? Because when you mentioned the $1 Million Movie, I think of that as just a tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut thing. Maybe there were other $1 Million movies throughout the country.
There was. So the $1 Million Movie, actually, the reason it's called the $1 Million Movie is that when in the early days of television, they wanted to license movies to run because they had a lot of airtime to film. Right. And so they did a deal with the studios where the studios gave them a block of movies that were made before 1948. And the deal was valued at $1 million. So that became the $1 Million Movie, was this block of old movies that they would run, that were licensed to television to watch. So
yeah,
it was everywhere.
For you, was it the same as, I'm 66. You guys are much younger than me, but for me, the $1 Million Movie was on every day, like at 4:30, and they showed the same movie Monday through Friday. So you could watch King Kong 5 times, or just watch the first half an hour, then tune in. You sound like such old farts about, I had to get up off the couch and walk through 2 miles of shag carpeting to change the channel. But we did. And that's why we know so much of what came before us, because our attention span didn't apply. Right. It wasn't like, I'm bored with this. What else is there? That's all there was. And that's what you watched. But I thank God for it. I also grew up in the 70s when nostalgia was not just a word that described the love of things in the past. Nostalgia it's a craze on its own. Like the big Broadway sensation was No No Nanette, which was a musical from the 20s that got revived with Ruby Keeler, who was the big star from the Busby Berkeley movies of the 1930s. And Bette Midler became a hit, a star from re-recording an Andrews Sisters song from the 40s, Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy. So when I was a young teenager, the nostalgia craze was at its zenith. So people were actively interested in what came before, the black and white movies and Fred and Ginger and MGM. So I'm really grateful that I grew up at that time, because I love looking back. And I also know that, by the way, I've never read a Harry Potter book. I've never seen a Harry Potter movie. So I realize I'm not doing my part for keeping up with...
What? I don't even know what to do with that information, Mark.
Yeah, I know. My husband has, of course, read and seen them all. And I always use that as the point of reference of, like, I get it's all cyclical. And, someday I'll sit down and I'll read them all and I'll watch all the movies. And anywho.
Well, this actually brings me to one of the things that I did not know that I discovered in researching with you is that you worked on the third That's Entertainment movie, which, again, for those of us who love the $1 Million Movie, those That's Entertainment movies were fantastic because it was like the best stuff from the glorious MGM musicals. And so for you, as somebody who had grown up on this material and everything, were you excited to work on That's Entertainment 3?
Oh my God, what a thrill. I mean, That's Entertainment. Yeah, my God. The first two were music arranged and orchestrated by Henry Mancini and I think Nelson Riddle. These are two gods of music and of arrangements and orchestrations. So to follow in their footsteps, what an honor. Of course, me being my luck, which is a big theme of my book, that like, I did That's Entertainment 3, the one that like played in 2 theaters for one weekend. I did Mariah Carey's second Christmas record that, sold enough, but was nowhere near like her first one. I worked with Barbra Streisand and ended up just getting yelled at for the bill for the copyists, the people who write out the music. I mean, you got to read the book on that one. Yes. My Stephen Sondheim, my moment with Stephen Sondheim, everyone else when he died was talking about these moments of great mentorship and how wonderful he was and what it was like to work with him or to be guided by him. And my story is one that only I would this happen. And you got to read the book for that one too. Or listen to the audiobook. I've been incredibly lucky, but I've also had some of the most bizarre versions of luck where anyway, I've had ups and downs and everything in between. And it was just time to get it all down on paper or on audio.
Well, I also learned something that I did not know, but your book answered a question for me that I've had for 35 years, which was Harry Connick Jr. and When Harry Met Sally. Because like a lot of people, I went to the theater, I saw When Harry Met Sally, loved the movie, and I loved the music in the movie. And I immediately, after I left the movie, walked out of the theater and bought the soundtrack. And I was so excited. And then I get the soundtrack home and I'm listening. I'm like, these are all Harry Connick Jr. covers. And I was like, I cannot wait until Mark is on the show. I'm going to ask him about why this album was all Harry Connick Jr. covers and not Ella Fitzgerald. And then I read your book and the answer was waiting for me in there. Yeah.
Lucky for Harry and I, they said that the deals that like Ella Fitzgerald, that one sticks in my mind, a definite memory, that the guy from Columbia Records told us, oh my God, the deal to use her recording on a recording is different than using it in the movie. And then the movie has a huge budget. So they paid whatever, Rob Reiner said, I want this recording, and they got it. So Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong and everyone else on that soundtrack, Frank Sinatra. But to use a recording for recording, that's where a recording artist really has a different deal where they're, the company was like, hey, that's really cutting into our own record sales. Mm-hmm. So they charge exorbitant amounts. And luckily for Harry and I, Bobby Colomby, the executive from Columbia Records, said, hey guys, here's a couple of dollars. Why don't you go off and make a record and we'll call it Music Inspired by When Harry Met Sally. So when you went out and got that record, and God bless you for getting it,
probably still have it.
It wasn't even the fine print. It said it right on the front, inspired by. Mm-hmm. And so that was, that made Harry Connick Jr. a star. Wow. That made the two of us co-producers of a hit album. And then I had Beaches at the same time. So I had Harry Met Sally and Beaches. Suddenly I had worked on these two huge soundtrack records. And that was, that was my big break really into actual success, that kind of success.
So on Beaches, I did want to ask you about Bette Midler as a performer and as an interpreter of song, because Bette has obviously a tremendous singing voice, and you put her on a beautiful song like Wind Beneath My Wings, and it's just next level. But she also has this body side of her, like the song that you wrote that's also in Beaches, Otto Titzling, that had been
Otto Titzling, inventor and crowd. Yes.
It had been in Mud Will Be Flung Tonight, which I also have on CD. And so for you, working with Bette and this whole time, do you have a favorite side of Bette as a singer for yourself as a person who is helping to write and arrange and compose around her as a person?
I couldn't say, because that's what makes Bette Midler great, is that she can do it all. You know, there are some who do one thing and they do it awfully great. And you can go to that performer and know, you know, that's what I want to get. But with Bette Midler, it's so full rounded, you know. I mean, those first two records, I was 13, 14. You know, the fact that it went from, you know, Leader of the Pack or Chapel of Love, these girl group songs that Barry Manilow, her musical director, arranged so that they were just these phenomenal theatrical versions of songs. But then she'd break your heart with a song like Hello in There. You know, and on stage, she'll have you hysterically laughing, often at something very bawdy. And then like 20 seconds later, there's a lump in your throat and she has switched it all up. And I love that. And it's something I like to do on my own level myself, whether writing or even now as I'm, you know, hawking this book. I have that same ability, not on a Bette Midler level, but, you know, I could tell a story and then move on to something else and not be fearful of showing my emotions and switching gears. And that's what makes her, you know, just the greatest that ever was.
So, Marc, you have done all of these things. You've worked with all these incredible artists. What is there anything you haven't gotten to do? Is there anything you haven't achieved that you like? I should have this, or I wish I had this, or someone you really want to work with that you just haven't had the chance yet?
I've been so blessed that I can almost answer no. I should be satisfied or satiated with just what I have had to do. Yeah, I mean, if you talk about, I've been nominated for the Oscar 7 times. It would be nice if I had won one of them, and then I could look at my little shelf and have them all. But, you know, how can I complain? I will complain, but I shouldn't. No, and, you know, it's rare. Every now and then I meet some big person in show business, and I'm like, yeah, like, you're the last person I've never worked with. But... And now I'm old, so you know, I'm not going to be working with. You know who I would like to work with, because I love the fact that she embraces show business, is Sabrina Carpenter. I met her at the SNL 50th, and I stopped her and I said, because I just watched her special, and I said, I love that you embrace show business. You sound contemporary. You're completely contemporary, but she embraces the joy of old school show business.
Well, she's a theater kid.
Yeah, I love that. But, you know, and I, you know, I did get to work with Ariana Grande on Hairspray. I was in England, so leave it to me that Scott and I were making Mary Poppins Returns in England. And when they did Hairspray live for NBC with that incredible cast, we didn't get to be a part of it at all. We were watching, you know, looking at their Instagram posts. They were having cast parties every night at Ariana Grande's house. I didn't get to be a part of it at all. But, you know, no, I'm
not fair, Marc. That's not fair. You should have been a part of it.
Yeah, I should have been at those cast parties.
Well, you were busy working, you know, with Meryl Streep and Emily Blunt, and, you know, writing an Oscar-nominated song. So yes, it was, you know, those were tough choices for you, or these other things too. You know, it wasn't like you were like in a ditch and it's like, oh, I couldn't be there.
No, I know.
All right, Marc, I want to ask you this because it's kind of behind the scenes a little bit, but obviously we're recording this and we have you on camera so we could see you. The room you're in obviously has a piano in it because every once in a while you start playing. What is this space you're in? Is it your studio at home? And what kind of magic happens in that room? Because I suspect a lot.
This room, I have an apartment here on 26th Street, me and my husband. And this room is just a bedroom that has a piano and my computer equipment in it. And it's just a little mess. Upstate at my house, it's a little nicer. Over on 20th Street, where Scott and I used to live together when we were a couple, and it is still where Scott lives, that is where we have a soundproof studio.
Nice.
that is where most of the magic has happened, where, we wrote Hairspray there, and it's a soundproof studio. So Lord knows I couldn't begin to tell you the things that have happened in that room that the neighbors never knew about. But that is where most of the work gets done. And if I could turn the camera around, if I was there, it would look more like what you would expect
Sure.
a working studio to look like. Not the mess that you're seeing right now.
But the truth is, sometimes the magic happens in the most unexpected locations.
Oh, yeah. As long as there's a piano or, a pencil and a legal pad. I do remember I write in the book, Scott and I wrote the lyrics to Welcome to the 60s, walking up and down the beach in Laguna with just a yellow legal pad and a pencil.
Wow.
I had the rhythm in my head. And then we just started writing, and then I went up to the garage where we had put a piano at this rental house. Anyway, and California, of course, so much happened for me in my studio there when I, lived in California, and so many movies. And it's where Hairspray, we wrote the very first songs of Hairspray there at my studio in California.
Wow.
So speaking of Hairspray, I did want to ask you, because I watched the documentary about the Beach Boys with Brian Wilson, and he talked about what an influence the Ronettes song Be My Baby was for him. And when he heard that song, he was basically like, oh my God, this is incredible. Why have I not done this? Right. But that song was also, along with other songs of that era, were very influential for you for Hairspray. But specifically with Be My Baby and the Ronettes, as a songwriter, like, because I can't ask Brian Wilson, he's dead now. What is it about that song and the drum at the beginning of in the song that like just resonates and speaks to you and is so inspiring?
Boom, 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 crack, 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 boom, boom, boom. It's just, it was the first one. I'm not being a perfect historian, but I think it was the first record that had that specific rhythm that ended up being on many, many, many songs. And then right through, the more modern era of like Bruce Springsteen or Billy Joel and so many others. But to approximate it on the piano, it's... And also, just listening to it that way, it has a sort of jungle, primal, boom, 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 boom. So maybe it's because it has this primal thing about it that we relate to it as like, oh, we all came from that drum beat, from that sound. And so, yeah, it certainly was the inspiration for Good Morning Baltimore. I mean, I didn't steal the chords or the melody, but that rhythm certainly was like, that would be what Tracy Turnblad was listening to. And so, of course, she would wake up and sing her own song that would be as if she went to sleep, listening to Be My Baby.
But I mean, that sort of like human heartbeat song.
Yeah.
And when you think about the early 60s, like this is like you immediately are thinking of the era as soon as you hear that thumping. Mm-hmm. Of like this is, and part of it is probably also, when Kennedy came in and there was a lot of feeling of like, this is a new young generation. It's the, the baby boomers begin to be in ascent where they have been ever since. And so it really, to me, is evocative of like that, the moment that the baby boomers are really like, this is our time. This is our moment. And this is our drum beat into the world.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a heartbeat is a perfect also analogy. You're right. But like I was saying, it is almost like this is our arrival. Here we come. It's like when in King Kong, to go back to $1 Million Movie, when you just heard his footsteps and the trees rattling before you even saw him, like, here it comes. It's like, here's the arrival of something big and new. And so you're completely right. It was the beginning of an era. It is amazing when you look at like the difference between the 60s and the 40s. I mean, the 40s is big band music and, and then the 60s is rock and roll and hippies. And it couldn't look more different. If you looked at 18-year-olds in 1944 or 18-year-olds in 1967. But it was only 20 years really difference. And if you look back now, 20 years ago, things pretty much look the same.
Yeah.
Really, almost since the 60s, yeah, you could look at flowered children in the 60s or the 70s with bell bottoms and girls with their hair parted in the middle. But for the most part, the last 50 years almost has had, since rock and roll came around, it sort of basically looks and feels the same. It's not like that huge difference between the 40s and the 60s where things really, really changed big.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's rock and roll. Rock and roll is here to stay. It's just rock and roll just would not relent. And although it has changed in certain ways, and then of course, and R&B was really the same time when Motown really, I mean, but that, it was all coming, now we're getting into, musicology. I mean, this could be a whole other podcast. There was swing music that led itself into rock and roll. Jimmy Lunsford. There were people that had, but it was more swinging. And then instead of horns, the guitar took over, and then it was rock around the clock, and then it was rock and roll was here to stay, and then that was it. And rock and roll, I mean, and then R&B became hip hop, but it's all sort of the same. Mm-hmm. And then with hip hop, the fact that it was sampling what had come before, so the sounds of the previous decades were still ingrained in what was new. And yeah, so now we're getting into deep musicology, and I don't know. Your listeners have clicked off minutes ago.
Oh, I'm sure they haven't.
This is what they want. So I one of the things that because I saw Hairspray on Broadway near the end when Harvey came back.
We saw it together.
Yes. And I have to say, You Can't Stop the Beat at the end of the show is like, you just explode people out of the back of that theater at the end. Like they're not leaving willfully. They are being like, the music and the energy is shoving them out the back because it is so intense and so thrilling. And it was the thing for me with the movie that when I watched it, I was like, people are not going to have the same energy in the movie of this number. It's so incredible because the in-person part of it, which is the real magic of Broadway, was just really powerful to me. And so for you, the first time with an audience and you're seeing the show and everything, because you had to know that song immediately worked, like right in front of an audience. So did you also have that same sense of like, oh, people are going to just levitate out of the theater at the end of this show?
Well, we're all writing it and rehearsing it. Yeah, things felt good, but you can't predict, or you could never know for sure. But after the first preview in Seattle, we kind of did know. 2 moments of looking out, peeking out from the curtain that I think of. One I wrote in the book, and one I realized now I didn't put in the book. That Scott and I looked out at the first night's audience in Seattle, and we've been rehearsing it and writing, and yeah, it felt like this really feels like it works. And then we peeked out in Seattle at the audience, and I think both Scott and I just kind of felt like the audience was going to look like us. They'd sort of be our age. They'd sort of just would have the sense of humor on their face that we have. They'd be black and white the way the cast was. And we looked out, and this big, full audience looked like they had all come from a George and Martha Washington look-alike contest. I mean, as white and as I don't want to say elderly, but they were older than I were expecting or hoping. Their faces were white, their hair was white. It was white, but they loved it from the second it started. You were like, oh man, they're loving it. And then once we were on Broadway and all that, Scott and I used to sometimes peek out from the side curtain during You Can't Stop the Beat. And it was just amazing to see a whole audience, whether they were 7 years old or 77, black, white, Asian, old, young, rich, poor, whatever they were, they all had the same look on their face during You Can't Stop the Beat. They were all just sitting forward in their seats with the look of like the joy of being on a safe roller coaster. And it was just amazing to just see that kind of unity. So yeah, that was a great thrill to be part of something that created that kind of unity for at least 2.5 hours, that everyone was the same. And, you know, I get choked up even thinking about it. It's just, especially now, is, you know, so divided. And it would be nice to have Hairspray on right now and be able to peek through a curtain and hopefully see that same image.
I wanted to ask you about a show that is not your own, but that I went to see. And I mean, I have seen a lot of Broadway shows, not as many as people might think, as gay as I am. But I was, you know, I feel really fortunate that we were able to see Hairspray with Harvey in it. I saw Catch Me If You Can. I loved it. There was not an ounce of fat on that show. I don't know what people were thinking. Like, I really had a great time at Catch Me If You Can. You guys managed to get Aaron Tveit shirt off 4 or 5 times. There's a kick line. I'm like, this is fantastic. I've had a lot of great times at the theater, including at your shows. But I have to say, the way that people talk about shows of the past, you know, Ethel Merman and Gypsy or whatever else, right? When I saw Bette Midler in Hello, Dolly, I have never seen a show where the audience energy was at or above the energy on stage. And the energy on stage was unbelievable, but it felt like a tent revival. Like, yes. I have never had that experience in a theater before. So for you, you've been friends with her for a very long time, 50 years, and I know you saw the show. What was it like for you as a friend, as a fan of musical theater in the theater during that show?
Well, let's just first talk Hello, Dolly. When Carol Channing did one of her many revivals, came back to Broadway, and this was, I guess, in the 90s. And I think she might have been in her 90s. And the tempos were quite slow. But anyway, me and my friend Adam Shankman, who directed the Hairspray movie, we went to see it. I think it was a matinee. So we're sitting next to each other, and in the middle of the Hello, Dolly number, without nudging each other or like touching each other's thigh or something to even we just naturally at one point turned to each other because we both knew, and sure enough, we were both weeping with joy at the musical theater nirvana that was happening, that we were there. So then now, you know, Bette Midler finally coming back to Broadway in the perfect vehicle, and a show that hadn't been seen in a long time, and the kind of musical comedy, musical theater joy that, you know, people had been like, oh, enough of that stuff. You know, we must represent this and that. And we have to see us on the stage, and, you know, everything that's going on in the modern world, which has its place. But so does Hello, Dolly. But when you put Hello, Dolly and Bette Midler together, it was just an explosion. And as her friend, so add in what everyone else was feeling, and then add in it's your friend up there basking in this bath of you know, it was just, I can't find the words to even describe. But I was part of the audience as well, just screaming and you know, just floating on air. It was the greatest. It was the greatest. I know that she has said that was, you know, the pinnacle for her. And can you imagine? Because she has been on top, you know, for more than 50 years, and has been in every country and been on her own in her own concerts. And can you imagine what it's like? I mean, I just do these book signings now, these events that last an hour with me telling stories like this or performing. And when I'm finished, my adrenaline is so sky high. And I said to her the other night, I can't imagine what it's like for you to finish after 2.5 hours of being the focal point and the lightning bolt and the one. Like, how do you come down from it? Like, you know.
Oh, I don't think I ever would.
And it's tough. It's hard. And that's what also creates for a lot of people trouble, because how do you come down to real life? So anyway, blah, 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 blah.
But it's also like Elaine Stritch said, you have to live like a fucking nun. Like it's like 8 shows a week takes so much out of you. It is a lot. But as you know, Christopher Sieber, because he's a part of my next question for you, because we're way over time, but I have to ask you about Rogers the Musical. But Christopher Sieber's husband, Kevin Burrows, was in the Hello Dolly revival in the 90s as a dancer with Carol Channing. And when he saw the show, his feedback was, everyone in this show is better than they need to be, because everybody's here for Bette, right? It's a star vehicle. Everyone's here for Bette. But everybody in that show was so unbelievable. And of our beloved Gavin Creel, like so many incredible performers in that show. And it just like everything about it. It was just one of those things where an amazing show, incredible cast, like where all the pieces really come together.
Yeah, it was impeccable. Yeah.
And I'm a huge Jerry Herman fan. You know, I love a good 11 o'clock number. I can't believe they haven't done a Broadway review called It's 11 O'Clock, and it's just 11 o'clock numbers. But anyway, I love Jerry Herman as a composer. So, I was totally in heaven in that show for sure. But let me ask you about the Rogers musical in Hawkeye.
So great.
Yes. So how did that come about? And will we see a Rogers the musical happening again in one of the Disney theme parks? Because they did run it a little bit at California Adventure, and I would love to see a more full stage show.
Agreed.
So, it came about from, I was at a Academy Award function, the Governor's Ball, where everyone who's hoping to get nominated goes to this and schmoozes themselves into a tizzy. And we were there for Mary Poppins Returns. Scott Whitman called it bobbing for Oscars. And someone tapped me on my shoulder and said, Kevin Feige would love to meet you. And because I'm married to a Marvel nerd, a comic book nerd, my husband Lou, I knew who Kevin Feige was because I went to all the Marvel movies with Lou. And then when they were all over, we'd sit in the parking lot and I'd say, so what did I just see? What was that? So I knew who Kevin Feige was, and I was like, he wants to meet me? And I couldn't believe Lou wasn't there. So Kevin Feige, it turns out, is a big film score nerd. And he was talking to me about City Slickers. I was like, I can't believe I'm talking to Kevin Feige and he's talking to me about my film scores. So anyway, we traded phone numbers, and sure enough, a few months later, he called and says, I have this idea for there to be a musical in Hawkeye where the Avengers, the story of the Avengers and the fight to the finish in New York is musicalized. And it was such a weird tightrope to have to walk, because I knew Hawkeye had to be there rolling his eyes at like, I can't believe they've made this cheesy Broadway musical of something that happened in our lives that was this meaningful, intense moment. So I knew it had to kind of be cheesy Broadway, but it also had to be good enough that you'd enjoy it. So that was tough. And can you imagine the phone call I got? And I was able to say, Lou, you won't believe it. I'm part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And Lou get to come with me to the filming of the number. That was just, I got scored so many points in my marriage. Lou got to hold Captain America's shield, and Thor's, as far as the theme park show, they did that without involving us. It's a real sore point. I can't believe that. I mean, they used our song, but other people said, hey, we want to write a musical. And they said yes. And so it's a sore spot for me that I would have loved to have done more work on that. And
yeah, because that would have been awesome.
So it was kind of shanghaied from us. That's probably a politically incorrect expression to use now. But so yeah. So thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah, way to go, Derek. Way to wrap up everything with this sore spot.
Don't worry. I have so many sore spots. It's impossible not to hit a few of them.
Well, and in your book, this is the thing, the real takeaway from the book, and this is a good way for us to wrap up, is that you have more than once faced issues with sort of like, you obviously had this innate talent, and as Rob Reiner said, they about talent. Talent is talent, I think, right? That's what Rob Reiner said.
Correct.
And, the work is going to follow because you're so talented. You're going to continue to get work, and if you just follow your talent. But like early on, when you were in middle school, high school, whatever, a music teacher basically took credit for your work. And so you're already at 14 experienced what was ultimately going to be a Hollywood lesson, which is, yes, talent gets you very far in this business, but not everyone is going to be an honest broker along the way.
Yeah, and that music teacher was a wonderful mentor. He didn't purposely steal credit. I just was not invited to the credit-giving ceremony, so to speak. But anyway, yeah, it was my first lesson, and like, oh, okay, this hurts, but okay. But I just kept getting up. I kept dusting myself off, and
we're glad you did.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
But before we go, I did want to ask you about Rob Reiner, and I know
because I have 3 minutes before I have to start talking about myself all over again with someone else.
Very quickly, I want you to brag on Rob Reiner and his support for marriage equality.
Oh my God, yeah. But outside of the career that he gave me and the friendship that I had with him for all these decades, him and his wife Michelle were intrinsically involved with the fight for same-sex marriage right up into the Supreme Court. They were really involved, not just sort of involved, and not just writing a check, actively involved with the fight and putting it all together and getting the legal team together. So yeah, I am happily married very much because of the fight that Rob and Michelle were a part of to make that happen. So I have so much to be grateful to them for the rest of my life. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I'm very grateful that you spent this time with us, Mark.
Me too.
We love you. We're going to have you back on the show 50,000 times now.
All right.
It's been great catching up, and congratulations on the book and the tour.
Yeah.
Everyone picks up your book.
Buy the book, buy the audiobook, buy them both.
Get two.
Yeah, you're not going to break the bank.
It's a New York Times bestseller. Our thanks to Marc Shaiman for being with us. Never Mind the Happy. Available now everywhere fine books are sold. Thanks, Mark.
Bye.
Well, there you have it. The end of another perfect episode of Derek and Romaine. And if you want more great fun, go to dnrstudios.com and subscribe to get our show every day. And don't forget, for DNR Plus subscribers, you can use the DNR Cast app for iPhone, available now in the App Store.